So I wanted to take a little bit of a break from just the basic shop setup, although you can clearly see this is where we're now going to be set up all the time. And I'll give you future updates about that in the next coming videos. But wanted to take a little bit of break from just the shop updates and do a little bit more of a ranty one, and then we'll do some more of the regular reptile content. I apologize. Number one, I don't have any animals out with me right now because they all ate today. So because this is the first day that all of the guys are here now and they've settled, so I wanted to get food into them. So sorry for there's no animals, but you get to see my cool racks, and I'll talk about them a little bit too. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can improve our actual keeping when it comes to keeping reptiles and amphibians. I did a few videos ago, one about different products that we can actually purchase that will help with that, but I want to talk about 5 things that we can either think about or implement that aren't necessarily exact products we can buy, but things we can do that do result in buying things, but also just kind of a mentality about some things that will greatly improve our husbandry and our welfare and keeping of these animals, that will also greatly improve our kind of image to the rest of the world, because that's all over the place right now. So number one, this is like the 5th time I have tried recording this video. Every time I do, it ends up being like 40 minutes long. So this list of 5 things that I'm going to talk about today, where I'm actually going to break up into 2 videos. So this is actually going to be part 1. So apologies for that in advance, but we'll get right into that. So the first things first. So when we talk about animal welfare and keeping, so we're not talking about animal rights necessarily. We're talking about how we keep them and, the things that we go into that. And, there's always obvious the things like temperature and humidity and substrate and lighting and the proper food and everything like that. The very basics, but still very necessary things. But expanding on that, how we can do a little bit better. That's what I'm talking about today. And so the first thing is obviously one that we've probably heard a lot about, and that is the size of the enclosures. So obviously behind me, I have a lot of rack systems. That's what I do. I do breed as well as keep and educate and just kind of have pets as well. But with that in mind, a lot of them are much larger tubs than you would see traditionally for most large scale or even small to moderate size scale breeders. Like for instance, and I've shown this off a number of times, this is the size tub I keep my adult female ball pythons in. Most people keep theirs in a 41 quart or a V70 tub, which is much, much smaller. This thing is almost 4 feet long, a lot deeper and a lot wider, which allows a lot more room for the animals. So even in rack systems, we can do something about that. So, I've also done another video about, minimum size enclosures. There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of older, outdated information and like care sheets, as well as just kind of the standard that we all got around, which was basically it's good enough. But I don't like that it's good enough mentality. We can always try to be better. We can always try to do better, both for ourselves and for animals, which is what I'm trying to do, which is why I have all of these racks, which are much larger than you normally see. And while I could, have twice as many animals as I can in this large place, I'm trying to do larger enclosures, a smaller number of species, and giving them more space and more time for that as well. So, I'm also, a lot of these are boa constrictors. A lot of these will be moving to larger cages as they get older, and I'm able to start building and purchasing larger enclosures for them. A lot of 4-foot and 6-foot enclosures. And the same thing can be said, and obviously I'm a snake guy, and the racks are behind me, so that's what I'm going to be talking about a lot. The same goes for lizards, like a bearded dragon. Shouldn't have a bearded dragon in a 40-gallon. Minimum, personally, I think a 4-foot enclosure. The 75 gets thrown around a little bit, but that's personally what I think. For a ball python, I think that should be in a 4-foot enclosure for as an adult. So that's why I said these 4-foot tubs gives them space to a little bit to stretch out and move around, and so on and so forth. But that's really what I want to kind of get across, is that we need to start thinking about what the bare minimum or starter size enclosures that we normally think about, even getting babies, not even adults, but just babies. We need to start thinking that those need to be bigger, so that way we can actually do more for them in their enclosures. And this is actually going to come back a lot in today's video, as well as the next video that comes out after this for part 2 of this. So that's really what I want to talk about, is just kind of basic standards of size. And if you guys really want, and a lot of this comes down to, because the racks, that's the big thing that everyone talks about, is racks versus aquariums or enclosures and stuff like that. And really that comes down to a difference in keeping. Is you have hobbyists who only have pets, they don't have a large number of animals, and then you have people who are breeders who keep in this. And I can do a whole other video, because honestly that's a different conversation that can be had that you may have even heard too. But if you want my 2 cents or you want my spin on it, please let me know down in the comments of this video. I'll absolutely be glad to give you my 2 cents, or at least my opinion or spin or whatever you want to say on that particular topic, because I think it is one that does need to be talked a little bit about, because it's fairly nuanced and there's justifications for and against both of those things. But moving right along into the second thing, which is actually probably only going to be the other one that I talk about in this video, because this one's going to talk a lot for, it's going to tie into a lot of things. And that is another one that you have probably heard more than any other, but there are other ones that I'm sure that you've seen pop up in plenty of other content creators' content, which is enrichment. So when we think about enrichment for reptiles, there's a lot of different things that can cover that. And so, you know, that can be something as, and I have 2 of these large tubs just full of stuff. And that could be stuff like this, you know, a bunch of fake plants, and also in here, you know, I have other things that are interesting too that you can add in there. And then we have, you know, live, well not live, but we actually have wood and rocks and things. And so what that is as far as like the bare minimum that what we talk about when it comes to actual enrichment is things we can put in there for your animal to interact with. And this one is honestly, I think, the most important one of the 5 that I'm going to talk about in this mini-series, is because this is the one that is easiest for everyone to do. I'm going to put this down here. And the easiest, and it's also the most inexpensive and the quickest that we can all get started on doing to start this, you know, mentality of better keeping, is this enrichment. And there's, like I said before, there's a lot of different ones. Obviously, the ones like the fake plants, the real plants, bioactive, real rocks, fake rocks, multiple hides, lots of different things that can be moved around, that can be changed out, that can be different, just basically something that can be put into the enclosure for the animal to think about. For the longest time, we all just kind of went with this idea that this minimalistic keeping, which works well for if we're just trying to monitor their like health, but it's not good for them. You know, they've done, and you might have seen them if you frequent any sort of like Facebook group or anything like that. They've now done a few different papers and studies that show that a lot of like the nerve synapses and the way that reptiles' brains function and work and their cognitive functions and abilities are very similar, if not almost identical, to mammalian ones. And we've now seen in larger zoological settings, as well as with our own like cats, dogs, and guinea pigs and things, that they need that mental stimulation to lead healthy, enriched lives. And that is now being shown that reptiles also need that as well. And so when we have something that, even in rack systems, let alone the other enclosures, putting in fake plants that can be moved around fairly often, that can be changed, that can be washed and moved around, and different rocks and things that can be put in for them to come and investigate and rub against and climb on and under and things like that, is something that helps add a little bit of enrichment to them. Like, there's a reason why I have 2 large tubs. It's because a lot of them I will just buy a lot at once, and then I can change them out as they get dirty. I can wash them. If they are too degraded, I'll just throw them away and I can replace them with more. And it's all fairly inexpensive, and it's different things for my animals to interact with, even in these rack systems. There's a lot of other enrichment things that are out there too, like for people who keep monitor lizards or tegus. Everything that you can do with like actually having them out and interacting with them outside of their enclosure. And that goes for snakes as well. You know, actually interacting with them, hand feeding, but off of tongs, different prey items, changing up their diets, letting them investigate stuff. All of that is also enrichment. There's something that a lot of zoos and wildlife parks do, which is they will do, essentially they will put little things in different areas of their enclosure, be it little treats, be it different scents, things like that, for the animal to go to, whatever animal it is. They've done it with Komodo dragons. They've done it with a lot of other mammalian things. They've done it with crocodilians. I even saw someone doing it with like false water cobras and reticulated pythons, where they would feed them in different areas when it came time to feeding, but for actual interactions, they would always be the same place, so that way they knew it was not being feeding. But for the interactions and stuff for them to investigate with their food or other things that are new for their actual enclosures, they would put them in different areas for their brain to think, so that way they can maybe try to imitate a little bit of that wild, natural behavior, which is really cool, which is what we want for our animals. In addition to, just kind of working with them, there's this kind of new trend that I've seen a lot of people, including my friends at the Reptile Barn up in Anchorage, Alaska. A lot of them do this too, where it's like this snake or reptile like activity wall, where it almost looks like this little like miniature like rock climbing wall for kids that has a bunch of different materials and sizes and shapes and textured objects that are screwed into this board for the animal to kind of climb up, or laid down as well, for them to investigate and move across and smell and taste and move, and kind of get them to just kind of move a little bit more than just kind of cruising whatever box that we are keeping them in, regardless of what it is. So it's a bunch of like really cool stuff, that everything we can do to help improve their lives. It's all about enrichment. And like I said, I know that word gets thrown around a lot, not even necessarily negatively by any means whatsoever, but that word is said a lot, and we've all heard it a lot. But I think it is the most important one that we can do to start with this trend of better keeping and better animal welfare. So I think that'll be it for this little part. The other part, I won't concentrate or focus on so much in one particular one. But as I said before, a lot of them will tie together, with the enrichment, with the multiple things that you can change and move around. If you have a large enclosure, it ties into that bigger enclosure. So the minimum space, the enrichment, it all ties together. So that same kind of theme will carry on to the next video. Hopefully, like I said, you've probably heard a little bit about this before from other content creators. But again, I just want to put it out there and just kind of stress how important this is for the future of our hobby, for people who want to be in the industry, and someone like me who wants to do education as well as breeding. This is very important. It needs to be something that we really start to stress and push for, which is beyond that bare minimum, going the next step and doing better for our animals, which will be better for us. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you can, please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I have plenty of videos where I'm just kind of ranting at you guys, as well as lots of other reptile content about all sorts of different subjects and all sorts of different species. Go check out, I have plenty of playlists, over 230 videos. I'm really starting to add them up there, so if you can, please go check that out. Hit the bell notification. It lets YouTube know that I exist. So that way, you can get notified that you have more nonsense of me talking in front of you guys. But hopefully you guys were having a great day. Hopefully this year is treating everyone really well. And we will check you next time for the next of this little mini series.